If you're a seller and you want or need liquidity, oftentimes you jump at the first offer and you say, yeah, this is great, let's do it, for other reasons. That's why I think having an advisor really helps.
Welcome to a brand new episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast presented by Cornerstone International Alliance. I am your host, Nick Olsen. On this show, I get the opportunity to talk with the brightest minds in lower middle market M&A. Together, we discuss industry intelligence, deal management, shared successes, specialized expertise, and much more. If you serve the small to medium-sized business owner, this show will offer you tactics and insights you can use and implement now to become a master in M&A. Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast. My guest today is the co-founder of Grata, a private market intelligence platform. He was part of one of the most watched M&A transactions in the deal-making tech space, where Grata was acquired by Datasite. They've transformed the space through integrations of SourceScrub and Blueflame AI, along with an expansion into the European and Australian markets. He is a returning guest to the show, last appearing in episode 34, where he talked about how M&A was shaping M&A. Today, we'll be talking about all the amazing things that he's been working on and the continued advancement of AI in our industry. Please welcome back Nevin Raj. Nevin, welcome to the show. Thanks for thanks for coming back on and talking to me today.
Yeah, Nick, it's been a while. It's been over a year. So excited to be back.
A lot has happened since we last talked. So wanted to just, back in 24, you guys were an independent AI native platform, and we were talking with our audience about just how AI is shaping the M&A space. 18 months later, you guys were acquired by Datasite. Now you're part of a portfolio that also includes those other things that I talked about, SourceScrub, Blueflame AI. And so you got this really robust platform. But take us, kind of just update our audience. What's going on with Datasite, Grata, and that merger and acquisition?
Yeah, happy to share more. So we joined Datasite back at the end of 2024 and really brought it public mid-2025. And this was coming off the heels of two things happening. One was Datasite, as you all are probably intimately familiar with, was the leading virtual data room provider, really focusing on bringing complex projects and transactions to market and helping our sell-side clients have a secure, compliant environment where they can engage with the buy side. And Datasite had been expanding the scope of the business over the last few years, acquiring several assets in the virtual data room business, but then expanding beyond that. Acquisitions were done post-deal. A company called Sherpany was acquired for board reporting. And then even prior to Grata, there were two assets that were purchased in Europe. One was a company called Silk, based out of Paris. Another one was Mergerlinks, based out of Warsaw, around deal sourcing, origination, and transaction data. And these were Datasite's foray, along with some organic builds around Datasite intelligence, into workflows that live outside of the actual execution of a transaction in the virtual data room. So in that time, Datasite reorged to more of a holding and group structure and acquired Grata to lead data and intelligence, which is pretty much everything before a transaction is in the execution phase. We also, as you mentioned, acquired Blueflame, which is our agentic native workspace. It's also it spans both pre-execution and execution phase for being able to engage with all of our content and all of our data agentically and using kind of AI to connect internal and external systems. And then within Grata itself, we have rolled up and added a few other data providers to what we do, SourceScrub for that conference data and some of the other data capabilities. As I mentioned before, Grata, we had Silk and Mergerlinks, who we integrated, and then more recently, another company in Europe for European financial filings and financial data called Valuate. So it's been a series of acquisitions that have created a really strong content store within the Grata business for proprietary data and content, Datasite for M&A infrastructure, and then we have our board reporting platform as well, which has created this really end-to-end M&A infrastructure that private markets run on.
What does all this coming together mean for the M&A advisors out there who are utilizing a lot of this intelligence, maybe ad hocly, but now coming in under this one umbrella? What does that mean for our listeners?
Yeah, there's kind of two parts to it. The first part is that it's mostly been fragmented today. If you're an M&A advisor, you know that you're sitting in a data room one day, you open up another tab in your Chrome or Internet Explorer, and you get your Grata, and you get your data and intelligence and your news, and it's in so many different spots. And part of that is to bring it together for it to be a seamless workflow. And we realize that there are times when they are distinct and when origination looks very different than bringing in a deal to market. But we know that there are a lot of synergies that happen when you can tie the two together, right? Basically, what you see in your early conversation and your pitches inform when you bring an asset to market, how you bring them to market, the buyers you engage, and even the way you present your marketing material, right? Your teaser, your sim, how you structure that data room for diligence. These are all connected. And that's what we're building. It's an integrated workflow. The second piece beyond this is actually the data. And it's not just the workflow, it's not just the space you live in, but it's the information that we are able to collect and make that experience better for the user. Now, take, for example, Datasite knows, and we know, all the data room and all the execution activity that's happening. If you looked at, let's say, a source, I don't know, you looked at the news or merger market or pitch book, you would get a sense of deals that are closed and announced. And that's just a portion of the market. It's this visible portion. It's in arrears. It's what's happened in the past. We have a view on what's happening today. And when you take that data and you aggregate it and anonymize it, you can get really deep and informative insights for your clients as to what markets are hot. Maybe you're in talks with a potential client and they say, I want to wait. I want to wait past the settling of macroeconomics and the war. I want to wait for tariffs. I want to wait for interest rates. Like, there are reasons to say no. But if you can understand what's happening in real deal activity, and you know that buyers in the space are active today, and you know that deals are coming to market and deal cycles are reducing, that's a really valuable insight on real active live markets to help you with origination all the way down to execution and knowing the timing to bring a company to market. It's things like these. It's insights that you may have not thought, maybe weren't so obvious on the surface, that what we have that we're bringing into our product that are going to really help advisors have really differentiated access to new content to make better decisions.
Yeah, amazing. And if we can be more efficient, and that's really what AI is helping us with, is becoming more efficient, and maybe even 1.5x the amount of work we can do, and putting it all together obviously helps with that. And so as we're working with sell side M&A advisors are bigger, one of the biggest listeners of this podcast, how can they take the work that you guys did and maybe step into the work that they're doing for sellers. Before I dive into the what they need to know, you just went through this acquisition on as the seller. Obviously, you're very much integrated into the new company, but just take us through, just how did that process go for you and your business partner, and how did that just emotionally, what was that tipping point of like, yes, this sounds like a good idea, I guess the why and the how and what the emotions were like for you?
We it's actually interesting. It's very meta here, thinking about this from being in the shoes of a client of an advisor and the sell side. Yeah, my co-founder Andrew and I, we started thinking about this back in April of 2024. It was a thought that crossed our mind. We were growing really rapidly, and we said, well, what comes next? How do we get to this next phase of growth? And we started thinking through our options for taking the business to the next level. And it came down to, we needed to resource more and go to market, and we needed to tap into more proprietary data and proprietary content. And those were the two top priorities for us. We started exploring it. A lot of our customers are also on the buy side with equity firms. We started having some conversations with them initially. During this time, actually, Datasite had reached out to us about a partnership. And we were talking about the same things I told you about today, connecting the workflows, connecting the data. And the conversation started getting deeper and deeper. And what we realized was that to actually push this forward, we needed alignment, like true, deep alignment of resources, because it takes a village. It's not just, here's an API, here's a data set, make use of it. There's so much more to be able to clean the data, reconcile it, figure out right from wrong, distill it, and even the go-to-market piece to push this into market. You need a lot of emphasis and focus on it. And so we took a pause in that conversation and said, well, if we're going to really go down this route, this is a lot of time for us, it's a lot of time for you. it may make sense to go deeper and think about this in a deeper way. And around that time, because we were having conversations with some of our growth equity customers as well, we figured that there was too much going on. We were growing the business. We were having growth equity conversations. We were having conversations with Datasite and strategics. And we said, we need to hire an advisor. And we ended up actually going again to our customer base. And one of our longtime customers is Deutsche Bank. And Deutsche Bank had been talking to us a lot about the space, really liked what they had to offer and their knowledge and expertise. And so started working with Jacques Raphael over at Deutsche Bank. He covers fintech, and Kevin Van on their team, who does it. Also Max Finkel worked on our deal really closely. So we started working together with them around positioning and really understanding more beyond the market, beyond the relationships that we had, to understand where the best opportunity would be for the business long term. It was working 3 jobs over the summer. We had conversations again with sponsors. We had conversations with strategics just to figure out what the options were. As I talked about, they're really looking at go-to-market and data synergies, and had a series of fireside chats, coffee chats, met a lot of really cool companies, a lot of great executives, all the names you would imagine in the space, in preparation for going out with a formal process at the end of the summer. And at the end of the summer, it was right around Labor Day, actually, it was when we kicked things off. And at that point, we had actually gotten so deep with Datasite that Datasite came back to us and said, we're so excited about what we can build together. We spent the spring talking about what could be done, and we spent the summer going deep. How do we accelerate this? How do we actually create something of value faster? And that conviction, the speed of motion, was one of the most convincing factors for us. I think what you don't hear as a seller is everyone talks about price and valuation and all these other elements. For us, it was really about the partnership and what we could create together. And part of it was the certainty to close, knowing when you talk to someone for the first time or the second time, you don't know if a transaction is going to happen. You think, you hope, but when you've had a dialogue with someone for over a year, and actually, by the way, this was not the first time we met Datasite. We met Datasite during our Series A fundraise back at the end of 2021. So it had been multi-annual conversations for several years, and this was just the acceleration of several years of conversation. So there was this mutual trust built, the certainty to close, the speed of movement, a lot of third-party work Datasite had done quite early. So all of those were positive signals. I think the last one, the one that solidified our interest in partnering with Datasite, was this do as you say as you do attitude of everything that Datasite had said. We saw consistent, the way they did diligence, the questions they asked, how we thought about plans for our employees post-close. There was this consistency. Whereas with other firms we talked to, that changed. And of course, that changes as you learn more about a company. So I think part of it is having that knowledge, but knowing that not just certainty of close, but certainty of what the plan would be post-close was a huge differentiator for us. And so we ended up working through a deal and closed by the end of the year in 2024. And now it's been a year and a half later, Grata has remained an independent operating business unit within Datasite, as I mentioned, really overseeing data and intelligence. And it's been great to be able to still operate with the agility and autonomy of a startup, but have the mothership to rely on things like shared services. We didn't have an IT department or a legal department or a facilities department. So having all of that handled by the group allows us to really focus on building great product and serving our customers. It's been a great best of both worlds situation for us. And then, of course, now with the various acquisitions we've done that we've integrated with our sister company, Blue Flame, has put us in this ecosystem where we feel supported, but also feel like we can provide this holistic solution for customers.
This episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast is powered by Cornerstone International Alliance, where leading M&A firms come together. As part of this international network, you get access to global opportunities, over 200 M&A experts, enhanced collaboration and knowledge sharing, and some of the best M&A tools and resources available, all to help you take your firm to the next level. Ready to join this exclusive network? Visit cornerstoneia.com/new member today. Yeah, it sounds like, somewhat not typical, but an M&A process. And, you guys are both coming from, different sides at this, but also both have a hand in the M&A process. What is just that knowledge that you had within that helped you kind of, select the right, firm, but also to understand the process where, like you said, you fast track this thing because you guys are both motivated and it's just the synergies just seemed to match up really well. But what is that just coming from the industry itself and all the work that you guys did? How did that help you?
Yeah, it's a good point because we see this every day outside in from our customers, both on the buy side and sell side. And I think the biggest thing we've seen is an understanding of the business. Oftentimes, and this is not just strategics, not just sponsors, it's strategics as well. You come into a business and you think you understand it. And you're talking to founders who have been working on the company for 10, 20, 30 years, who really understand the space deeply and the nuances that even being in it for a year, you don't see. And so we've seen things go wrong because of that, right? Financial structures misaligned, post-close plans misaligned, just even the basics of what should we do with the product and how should we continue to sell this? Do we have synergies? We've seen a lot of misalignment. So what we did is we tried to make sure we got through the hard questions up front. And that's something we do now, even with Grata acquiring other companies, is we have the question. We ask the founders, what do you want to do post-close? Do you want to stay with this business? Do you not? No harm, no foul either way. We need to know because we need to succession plan, or we need to transition, or we need to understand, are you here for the next chapter? That can be a really hard question to ask. We settled all that up front. Longevity, roles, goals. The second thing is also what's going to happen to the product. People are very connected to their product or service. A lot of mid-market businesses, the founder's name is attached to the business. And they want to know, will that legacy live on? And so part of that was clearly aligning on, will the Grata brand stay? Will it go? Why? And we were intellectually open to the right answer. Didn't really have an opinion either way, but we talked about the pros and the cons and the trade-offs and aligned on that. So it was founder roles, it was brand. We talked about investment as well. We had an investment case, again, because we were talking to growth equity and sponsors. We had an investment case built out. And we said, here are the resources we need to go to the next chapter. Will you fund these? Can you fund these? How much will you fund? And knowing that upfront also helped. And we actually got more than we had asked for. So we had a plan and we got more. Again, a lot of that came from these different shared services. So there were benefits there. Yeah, my general theme is alignment up front and asking these uncomfortable questions that you think will scare a seller away actually has the opposite effect. And by the way, if it is going to scare a seller away and it is going to kill the deal, it's probably not the right buyer. It's probably not the right parent for you. And that's something that people just don't talk about. And we realize that, again, seeing that outside in and seeing it play out in our own transaction.
So obviously doing that for you guys up front really gave you that comfort level to move forward with Datasite.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's good advice. It's always like go ugly early and get those out of the way because you don't want to waste time down the process. If it's, these things are going to pop up and you're like, oh, now you get cold feet, you get uncomfortable, you have reservations about moving forward, get that out on the front and the process, especially in your case, went a lot smoother, I assume.
Yeah, and it's easier said than done with all these things. If you're a seller and you want or need liquidity, oftentimes you jump at the first offer and you say, yeah, this is great, let's do it for other reasons. That's why I think having an advisor really helps because we had seasoned advisors who said, we've seen this 100 times. We see this every day. Be careful, know your options, have the conversations, and also having multiple conversations at once allowed us to see in parallel Datasite and all the alternatives. So we felt like we were turning over every stone. And it didn't feel like we were going broad to everyone out there, but we felt like we were going to the right people. We turned over every stone and that we kind of went into the deal eyes open. So I do think the value of having an advisor was incredible for us and paid its weight over 100 times in gold.
Nice. That's a great testimonial for the profession. I love it. Appreciate that insight. It was good to just get into the details of someone who's gone through that transaction, and I appreciate you being transparent on that. I want to dive in quick on one last topic here before I let you go here, but you guys are right in the mix. We just talked about all the things that you've acquired and working on, and AI is at the forefront of that. From your perspective, what is a practical AI playbook for lower middle market advisors, mostly helping, business owners sell their companies? What does that at a high level look like? What should people know? What should they consider? What should they be implementing as they look into, the process and how they're going to be more efficient and better at what they do?
You know, I know we're approaching the end of time here, and I want to try to sum it up quickly without, and by still doing it justice. It comes down to AI has really changed the game on workflow automation. We've in the past relied on software that's pre-built. We've relied on systems that are structured. AI allows you to build custom, really workflows that complete jobs and complete work the way you need to be completed across multiple systems. And that's really powerful. I recommend everyone get a ChatGPT or a Claude license. I know today Claude is very in vogue because of Claude for Financial Services was launched at the end of last year. Claude made it easy to build PowerPoints. Claude made it easy to do Excel modeling. That's going to come in OpenAI. Right? They're just going back and forth. Kind of feels like the cell phone wars of AT&T and Verizon of 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. It's happening. They're going to be at somewhat parity, I believe, by the end of the year, if not sooner. I recommend getting that and using that to build automations from origination down to deal marketing or marketing, deal prep, and execution. Because what you'll see is that, and it's similar to the value proposition Datasite is offering with trying to bring these all together, is that once you're able to string these together, you will just see general efficiencies and you'll be able to work faster. And the way you work with tools like Grata and Datasite and Blueflame will start to become headless. Like we launched an MCP here at Grata right now. It's in beta. It's being rolled out to all of our customers. Datasite launched an MCP. These are the languages, they're connectors, they're the languages that LLMs and AI use to speak to existing software and proprietary data systems. And so if you can take the LLM, build it the way you want, configure it the way you want, you can still get the best of the data and software you use if you connect them via MCPs. So bankers today are able to query Grata and say, get me a list of companies, get me proprietary data on them, draft me an email, send the email out in Outlook, capture it in my CRM, my Salesforce or Deal Cloud, write the notes, write me meeting prep, put it in the calendar invite, all through an automation, a single automation in Claude. And then once they win a client, they say, look through the client's SharePoint and their folders, create a summary, help me generate a teaser, make me a SIM, a V1. It's all connected. You can do this in Blueflame. You can add Claude. And that's really powerful. And then you could say, well, remember what we talked about when we had our first 3 calls when I was originating this deal. Make sure we have those as priorities when bringing this seller out to buyers. And that connects the process. So I recommend everyone giving it a try, using your MCPs and connectors. And the way we work with software is going to fundamentally change going forward. Salesforce, Mark Benioff made the huge announcement of Salesforce 360 going headless. You're going to see this with software. You're already seeing it with Datasite and Grata. So I think there's a lot of great things going on in the ecosystem right now. And I don't think everyone will move that way. I think people will try it. Some will go back to prepackaged software. Some will continue to use services and continue to have large teams of analysts. But you'll see it going from a tiny group of power users, I think, to a more uniform group across the board in the different ways you engage with software.
Nevin, I appreciate that. We're going to have you back on in 6 months too, I think, or 12 months, and just see what's happened over the last, since we talked here today.
This stuff changes by the day and week, so I'm sure it'll be quite different then.
Yeah. Nevin, I appreciate it. I've tried out, I'm excited to dive into your new P beta testing process. I can't wait for that. I've tried Blueflame. The platform is amazing, very, very powerful. So appreciate you joining. I know you got to run here, but where can our users or our listeners find more out about you and Grata and all that? So where can we send them?
Yeah, easy to go to our website at grata.com, grata.com. You can just request a demo right there. It'll get routed to the right person on our team, depending on what region you're in, what your business is. We'll make sure you get in front of the right person here at Grata.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody. That's our episode for today. Make sure to like, share, and comment on this episode. Pass it on to anybody who you think would benefit here from our conversation. Make sure to subscribe, get that notification of every Thursday morning a brand new episode goes live. And definitely check out Grata and all the great work that Nevin and his team are doing. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the M&A Mastermind Podcast, and a special thank you to our presenting sponsor, Cornerstone International Alliance. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, share, and comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We'll be back next week with more insights, strategies, and real-life experiences to help you take your M&A game to the next level.